What's up, everybody? Welcome to the third installment of Rocket League News, and obviously some new things. We've got a moving set and some other crazy stuff that we're experimenting with this episode. So, as always, let me know in the comments down below if you like the new look. It's things that we're experimenting with. Obviously, here with Sean as always. There's always going to be these chime-ins. He waved, but last time he yelled in the comment, again, never going to get there. So, again, it's going to be weird. I'm about it, though. It keeps us on our toes. For this episode, though, refinement is continuing to be the process. Faster turnaround times, better edits. Caleb still crushing it. And yes, I'm making up for the 13 times I called him out in the first episode. So, Caleb, I love you. Keep doing what you do. Jokes aside with everything, a lot for us to cover today. Obviously, we are trying to play catch up at this point, and with the faster cuts and the faster turnaround times, we should be able to get there. First things we're going to be covering is the EU and NA Winter Cup. We've got Regional 2s all in the books, and with that, we're going to pair it with some playoff scenarios. I've been doing shorts on my YouTube channel as well, if you guys haven't seen those, for playoff scenarios going into each week, which are like a quick minute, like this is what you need to know, but we'll give them some life in today's video. Alongside that, we're going to be talking about tiebreaker frustrations in the group stage. A lot of pros and a lot of people talking about how they don't like head-to-head versus, unironically, game differential, which was what they started with and then switched away from because people were also upset. Turns out you can't make everybody happy. Alongside that, we're also going to be talking about the frustrations from some people in the scene, both about a timeout call. We're going to be sitting down and talking with Team Liquid's coach, Xpere, and we're going to be talking about how Optic has expressed frustrations about how certain things people don't know. If you don't know what I'm talking about, hopefully we'll clue each other in. We're also going to be sitting down and talking about the prodigy Zen. He is officially 16 years old and unbanned, and why everybody should have him on his radar. His track record is insane, and he's pretty much going to take over the league. I know you guys are probably tired of us talking about him, but we're going to keep doing it until he gets to play.
He's nuts.
It's not even fair. Like, have you seen his 1v1 track record? Like, his history?
Yeah,
like,
I just saw it. Yeah,
it's absurd.
Crazy.
We're gonna talk about it. I'm sure Sean will have some thoughts as well. And last but not least, Turbopolsa hinting at possibly retiring. We reached out to him. We didn't get a response, but we're still going to talk about it. All that more on today's video. Before we get into the actual breakdowns of the recaps, we got to talk about the head-to-head scenario and the tiebreakers that everybody's been kind of up in a huff about. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, in the group stage, usually you have teams that obviously progress forward as the #1 seed and make it into the top 8 guaranteed. And then the other teams are 2-3 seed, making it into that lower round 1 bracket where they face elimination. The difficulty is sometimes there's ties. Teams in a round robin can go 2-1 with a 3-way tie. You can also see them all go 1-2 with a 3-way tie. But every once in a while, you do get a head-to-head scenario where two teams are tied with the same differential. You have a 3-0 team, 2-1-2 teams, and then a team that goes 0-3 or something to that extent that leads to two teams being at the exact same record. So how do you determine who progresses forward, who gets the high seed versus the low seed? And this has been a topic of conversation that actually happened last year as well during the open circuit situation with the Winter Cup. With round robin, there is circumstances where it is never going to appease everybody. There is going to be circumstances where you can't always have a defined, clear answer. And the conversation has basically been around the tiebreaker. That is, do you lean on game differential or do you lean on head-to-head? If I am a team and I have beaten you, clearly I am the better team. Some may think, which isn't actually the case. When, and in my personal opinion on this, when you're looking at a round robin group, I'm defining it as who is the best team over the course of all of our matches, not the individual match, which is how it used to be. But a lot of players complained that when the tie came, we beat this team earlier, why are we not moving forward? And the argument at that point was also the same thing. I have shown that I am better over the course of 3 matches, not just our individual match. And that's where the topic lies. So the conversation, as you've seen tweets and everything else, I'm sure Caleb is showing them as well. People have expressed frustration about why are we going by head-to-head instead of game differential? If you have two teams that have played 3 matches each, I personally believe that the results across all 3 matches outweighs the individual match between the two teams that are tied. Personally think that the first tiebreaker should be game differential, the second tiebreaker should be head-to-head. This also applies in the same way if there is a 3-way tie, but the difficulty with head-to-head tiebreakers is that you have 3 teams that have swapped matches. I have beat you, you have beat me, you have beat them. Like it doesn't matter. So that gets negated, and that's why it goes to game differential. So they do follow the same rules. The difficulty though is that Silence actually did this in the past, and then people complained about it, and then they changed it, and now people are complaining about the change. You can't make everybody happy. So you just got to stick to one. There is no right or wrong answer. I personally feel that you should go to game differential, then to head-to-head, and then if that still doesn't work, then you go to like head-to-head differential in the specific like marquee matchups. So with that said, let's actually jump into the actual regionals. We're going to start with Europe first, just because they played first and it's a little bit outdated. I know we're trying to get faster with the turnaround times. We've got graphic assets now. It took time. We're here. So EU Regional 2, some pretty exciting things is for playoff scenarios, just to start off with it. We essentially have 9 teams in the running for 4 spots. That we'll get into at the very end, just because it is leading into Regional 3, which is actually going down starting tomorrow. We're recording this on a Thursday right before. Again, time is tough. There's snowstorms going on. We're locked in our houses.
You might even hear the plow go by.
It's all part of the atmosphere and the what's the word I want? Ambiance.
The ambiance.
Yeah, yes. The ambiance. That's what we're working on. Either way, EU Regional 2 was a lot of fun in the Winter Cup. Some marquee moments. G1 actually ended up reverse sweeping K Corp in groups. K Corp can bleed. We found out it just took the full effort of one team to do it, even though K Corp is just that good, and we saw them win in the end. I know we're jumping ahead. Alongside of that, Team Liquid expresses the intention to improve and to try to prove people wrong, and they do that by implementing a new playstyle. I did talk with Xpere, which we will see later on, and he talks about the mental and the change and how it takes to enact that change. We'll have a full interview posted with that in the future. Ideally wants to prove people wrong, which leads to the narrative of can they do it? And they come out very convincingly. Outside of the grand final, I think they were like 17-3 in game differential, absolutely dominant in both their quarterfinal and semifinal match, where they went perfect 4-0, 4-0, and they didn't drop games until they were up 2-1 against K Corp. So Team Liquid's new playstyle, first week of implementation, leads to a grand final appearance and actually taking matches off of K Corp. I get it. Everybody's like, 8-1, why wouldn't you call timeout? Xpere is going to speak on his own behalf and provide context. So with us just talking about mentality and everything else, from your perspective, with no character limit, tell us why you didn't.
Can I give a bit of a background first?
Yeah, the floor is yours, man. You tell me everything you need to, because I'm sure the people at home are like, I want to know.
Like to start off, like basically, like even though like we did the whole playstyle change, like we still had like a very few, like 2 weeks, not even that, like maybe like 11, 12 days to do things. So like, yes, I was explaining like before as well, like the whole like simplifying the game. Obviously, like you have to overthink the game. Obviously, like at the end of every scrim, or for example, like I do with Oski before scrims, I would open a replay, show him like what's wrong, what's right, and tell him this scrim you gotta do this, and then you do it for 2 hours, and without when a chronic I'll do it after scrims. So it's like it was a very short amount of time to actually like put everything in your brain. And regarding the mental part, like our mental coach said one thing once, and it was like one of the things that like stayed in my mind, which is like on the high pressure situations, your body is gonna do the thing that they're most used to. And what's that? The playstyle that we played for the past year, which was like that full ball chase playstyle with Ato and Oski full ball chase, a Chronic staying just looking at the ball. The second that they try to get a clear, Chronic is ready for the ball. He beats everyone to the ball. Meanwhile, he makes 2-3 seconds with the ball in the air. I talk like that. It's a repetition. It was a whole playstyle. Even though people thought that was like only ball shares, like there was a big reason why sometimes we could maintain it for 4 minutes. Like we actually had a whole team plan going on, like why you could make it. It was working at the time, and it's what happened against Carmine. It's like there was nothing going on. The only thing that happened after the 2-1, after the timeout, was like they stopped our momentum and kind of like gave us the time to think, okay, we're actually playing good. The playstyle is actually working. We're gonna beat Carmine. And I started getting to everyone's head. Everyone started getting nervous. Okay, there's a chance to win. There's a chance to take down Carmine. And the thing that was happening is like after we considered the 4th goal, like the mentality is not. No one cares like around mentality in that situation. Like honestly, we've been through much stuff in these past 2 weeks that like you could destroy us 50-0 that we would go to the next game with the same mentality. No one cares, honestly.
The other side is looking at some of these teams that potentially can bounce back. Quadrant being one of those, with them attending the major and us getting to see Lando Norris. Curious if we're going to get to see him in San Diego, because Quadrant's response is proving that they are still a contender, despite having a rough Regional 1. Alongside that, K Corp is that team. They have won 2 back-to-back regionals. They have proven that they are the best team in Europe. The only concern is, are they going to be able to handle the pressure of the Blue Wall? Because with 2 wins, they are guaranteed to be in San Diego. Them and Gen G have already locked in their spot. Spoilers alert, Gen G is also really good. Who would have thought? We'll talk about them next. But primarily, K Corp, 2 back-to-back wins, looking convincing. But the pressures of the in-person stuff, I think now that they've been exposed to that, they know what the blue wall is going to bring. Are we going to get that same level of support in San Diego? I don't think so. So maybe we finally get that coveted matchup, Gen G versus K-Corp. I know it's what I'm asking for and have even tweeted about it, because at this point, I don't want to see any other two teams play. They are clearly a step ahead of everybody else. Alongside Quadrant, we also saw German Amigos bounce back. We sat down and talked with The Verge. The full interview has been released previously this week, so make sure you guys go check that out. But he talks about the opportunity they have to impress and stay in form. I talked about EG in the first split being a team that I thought had a lot of potential to show consistency. It was just the creativity in offense was a little bit of a templated approach. That seems not to be the case anymore, and they have started to improve significantly. But the biggest thing is consistency. They are proving that they can be a consistent top 8 team and then chance to jump into the top 4. They're going to need another big top 4 performance moving forward. And last but certainly not least, we got to talk about Moist Esports, a team that, despite being an amazing organization, continues to let their star players go. First it was Vatira, then it was Rise, and now we are starting to see Juicy try to find his form with a new team. Still think it's going to take time. I personally feel while all the players are talented on Moist, I don't think it is the right amalgamation of talent. I don't think it's the right roles being fit, and until one of the players on the team takes that step back, like Rise had to do at the Major when they placed top 2, you need someone that can support Astral and Joyo, and Juicy, although a very talented and mechanical player, I think also wants to be in that spotlight. He also wants to take control of the ball, which means someone else needs to take a step back. So while they're trying to figure things out, I'm curious on how long it's going to take for them to do that, and if it is too late. Because right now, Moist is fighting for a spot. They need a ton of help for playoffs, and primarily, top 8 will keep them in the running, but I don't know if it's enough to give them the tiebreaker win. Quick breakdown for the tiebreakers, things that need to happen. For your top 4, if you place in the semifinals and you're Liquid, Oxygen, and Vitality, you lock in your spot. You're going to the Major. If you're German Amigos and Quadrant, you need a top 2. And if you are Moist, G1, Sonics, and even Williams Resolve, winning the entire event will lock in your spot for the Major as well. The likelihood of that is that most of those teams aren't going to win based upon what we've seen, but anything can happen. EU parity is definitely a thing. The one team I didn't bring up is unironically the World Champs. Team BDS is even worse off than all those teams. Not only do they have to get into the grand finals and get a ton of help, it's still not enough. They have to win the entire thing and then have a bunch of scenarios also happen to knock out other people. What's crazy about that is, and I'm gonna put this out there, Team BDS is not only not going to the Major, they're also not going to the World Championship. I do not care how well they perform in spring, they are done for the season, which is a really crazy thing that the previous World Champs don't even get to defend their title at the World Championship this year. That is my assumption. That is based upon how I think things are gonna go. And maybe we see the previous World Champs 6 months into another season change their roster. It's a crazy time in Rocket League. All these teams are going through the refinement process, and the spring trade window is gonna be absolutely insane. Yeah. Like they will not win this regional. There's no fucking way. And they're done. Like they don't have enough points to go to this major. They didn't make last major. And even if they like win every single event, while yes, split 3 for spring does give additional points, they can't. I just don't see it happening. Let's jump into the NA Regional 2, or the Winter Cup as well. That went down the previous weekend where we saw FaZe Clan take the W instead of Gen G. So yes, K-Corp is the better team in the world right now, according to results, but Gen G the most consistent. That is now 6 grand final appearances in 6 events for this season. They've been in every grand final, both at majors and in regionals. It's kind of an absurd stat. It's also an RLCS record. So congrats to Gen G. While they didn't win, they still are the most consistent and arguably the best team in the world right now. So pretty awesome stuff from them. On the other side of things, pretty fun regional overall, unless you're a V1 or an Optic fan. For version 1, they failed to make the top 8 again, dropping a match that I'm pretty sure they got reverse swept in. I tried to remove that from my memory as someone who casted those matches, but it still sticks with you. The difficulty with that is in the post-game interview that we had, we did get the time to sit down with Com. Take a look at the clip at what he had to say.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be completely honest. I'm totally lost. I don't know what we're doing as a team. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what we're going to look like next regional. I don't know why we look like this. I just don't understand what's going on. This is just, embarrassing.
As for Optic Gaming, their season is kind of bleak right now, and you can expect a potential roster change. We are curious on what the Rise effect was going to lead to, and both V1 and Optic, who seem to be most affected by it by having to stick with both Calm on V1 and Magic Bear on Optic. It seems that there is more than meets the eye, the mental struggles or otherwise, or maybe just the fact that they knew they needed to make a change so they could keep up with the times of all these teams evolving. Either way, the results have not been there. I say more so on the mental side of things for V1 because even though they're trying a new playstyle, they are losing matches that they not only have big advantages in, but just should not be losing to that type of competition. On the other side of things, emphasizing the fact that Knights, Koi, Accrue, M80, Energy are proving it's not a fluke. Energy remains competitive and has put themselves in the conversation. They just haven't leapfrogged into that top 4 or gotten past that difficult top 8 match. We saw an incredible head-to-head between G2 and SSG that went the distance all the way to Game 7, which crazily enough, if SSG wins that match, it's the difference between needing like a top 4 versus a top 8 victory for tiebreaker scenarios, which comes down to literally 1 goal in Game 7. That is the stress and the strain on some of these players throughout regionals. It's actually incredible to see how when you take a outside look of all the events that have played out, and then you look back at the specific moments, it comes down to like one thing. I talked about this as well back when it was version 1 related because I'm most familiar with them, where in one of the regionals, they ended up beating Space Station in a quarterfinal match or a super close Game 7 match. And because they won that, it allowed them to go on to win the entire regional, which then allowed them to go and make the major. So again, you're gonna continue to see that top 8 where anybody's game. Obviously, we have some one-sided affairs when you see like Gen G play Complexity in the semifinals, but overall, you're seeing like pivotal moments and important things that you can focus in on that are the make and break for some people's entire seasons, and it comes down to like 1 goal. So Space Station has a much larger uphill battle because they lost to that G2 squad, who I consider probably a top 3 in the region. I think I would say it's Gen G, FaZe, and then G2. FaZe is still possibly contending for that #1 spot because we've seen the potential, but we'll break down more specifically like their desires and thoughts and needs probably in a future video. But primarily, they're playing a lot of defense against Gen G, which I don't think is recreatable, which makes me excited for Regional 3. Outside of that, FaZe did look pretty dominant in their matches and carried it all the way through to Sunday, but when they did play against the grand finals against Gen G dominated the offensive game, and eventually it was FaZe's defense that kept them alive. I think the stat was like something like 86% of the time FaZe spent on their own defensive half, which is a ton. And I don't think it's reliable. While I do think Mist is one of the best defenders in the world, you're pairing that with First Killer, who is also one of the best defenders in the world. The difficulty is there is going to be a time where you will bleed, or more demos will open up opportunities, or the accuracy and the creativity of Gen G will push through. So while I am commending them for their efforts on defense and being able to win and go the distance against Gen G and finally get a victory, which is desperately needed after that bounce back of a 12th place fallout, the 9-12 that they had where they lost to M80. The contrast to that is congratulations, you've basically made it possible for you to make the major. But on the other side, I don't think it's something you can rely on. FaZe has a lot of solo plays, which is the meta nowadays, where you create a solo opportunity, your players kind of wait for it to develop, and then you punish. But on the other side of things, that defense is not reliable. You will be punished for it in time. Eventually, you will get suffocated and give up on it. So I'm curious if they can recreate it. The First Touch guys kind of joked about how it's like the gospel of NRG and playing that defense and what it looked like, but we have seen how that has worked out for NRG lately. So offense is winning. It's going to continue to win. It didn't even work when it was Veloce, the most boring team to watch in RLCS history. But it is something that will provide you consistency. So I think it is something that is good to have as a base level and something you can rely on. I don't think it's going to be enough to allow you to build and win an event, let alone a world championship. And I say that, but FaZe just won. So maybe I'm wrong. Who knows? Quick recap, though, for the tiebreakers and things you guys need to know going into North America for Regional 3 as that one comes up. For teams that need a top 8 performance, pretty easy, is Complexity. Complexity makes top 8 and they get into the quarterfinals. They're good. They make it in. FaZe and G2 need a top 4 performance to counteract and balance out their previous performance in Regional 1. And to win, you need Dig, M80, Space Station. If they win the entire thing, they are in as well. Furia, Energy, Knights can force a tiebreaker if they win as well. And then there's a bunch of other teams that their snares get significantly harder. Things like if V1 only makes the quarterfinals, they're eliminated. They need at least a top 4 and a ton of help and stuff like that. I'm leaving those out. I will do those in shorts in the future. So if you guys want to see me pair them by groups, make sure you guys hit subscribe, turn on notifications, all that fun stuff. Those will be posted as well. And there'll be like a minute video that tells you exactly what you need with a link to the actual tiebreaker document, all that kind of stuff. I'll also drop that tiebreaker document down below in the description so you guys can go to that as well. Shouts to Direct, the RLCS statistician. The guy's an absolute legend and does not get enough credit for his efforts. It's a lot of numbers that I'm glad I don't have to punch in myself. Alongside the NA Regional, we saw a certain coach from Optic, Raw Greg, express concerns and frustrations and have something kind of alluded to. So the tweet states from Raw Greg, terrible prep plus terrible practice plus terrible communication all week equals our results today. Good games to Koi, Dignitas, and Gen G. And obviously that garnered a lot of responses from the community. Some being positive and saying to keep your head up and make sure that things, stay positive, like, hey, it's tough to reflect. And a lot of people criticizing the coach being like, well, isn't that your job? Isn't that your job to make sure you guys prep well? Isn't it your job to make sure that they practice? Isn't it your job to make sure you guys communicate effectively? To which I say, yeah, but there's a lot of other factors that go into that. It's not just that simple. He does end up replying eventually in a subtweet saying, you don't know what you're talking about at everyone. So clearly there is more than meets the eye. I did reach out to Greg and asked him for a comment. He chose not to respond, which I totally understand. Probably doesn't want to continue to let this thing breathe. I say to that, too bad, we're making it in a video. But I do think it's important. I think this has been a common thing that we're seeing more and more in the community. I always try to educate and talk about critical thinking and being aware that we don't know all the details. We don't know specifically what's going on. And he may just be expressing frustration. Do I think it's a good look? Particularly not really. That's stuff that you try to internalize and talk and communicate and build with your team. But sometimes it is frustrating. There's the concern of by saying those things, many people look at that and go, hey, you're criticizing your team. You're going to lose your job because the players basically determine if you stay or not, unless Optic has other plans and decides to lose the players versus the coach. At the other side, we don't know the specifics. We don't know the details. We don't know if there is something that happened personally or within the team. We don't know if there has been frustrations that have been aired. And he is speaking just openly. Is there a circumstance where communication from the team has led to a breakdown? Maybe it is just a generalization of like, we need to practice more, we need to do these things, and it's holding himself accountable. We don't know the specifics. So for everybody to jump on that, I get it. It's a knee-jerk reaction. But at the same time, without us knowing the details, which is something we'll talk about in another topic in the end of the video, it's tough for us to provide insight or answers without getting anything. But I do say, like, I am appreciative of people being open and honest and expressing frustrations and being very real. The difficulty, though, is that it does open you up to criticism, which is what Greg has been basically under the gun for. So on the other side of it, clearly people do not know the specifics, which he does end up tweeting and he does end up putting out. But personally, I feel it's kind of a double-edged sword. While you are being open and you're expressing frustrations and trying to state like, yes, we know we are more capable of that. This is now 2 events in a row where you have gone 0-3 and out in groups. I think they have gotten a win and lost like a tiebreaker scenario, but you have not made it out of the group stage. You have finished 13th to 16th back-to-back after trying to make a roster change with Magic Bear, and clearly it's having an effect. While I have said this numerous times, Optic was, as people saw them come together, touted to be an incredible team. I said they were top 8 at best. I'm pretty sure my power rankings at the very beginning of the fall split also reflected that. I think all 3 players are incredibly talented. Both Magic Bear, Reddles, and AJ all have a ton of talent, but I do not think the formula success includes those 3 players on the same team, which is why roster changes are needed sometimes, and sometimes these things don't work out, which is difficult. Everybody looks at the immediate short-term result instead of looking at the big picture, and sometimes it is trial and error. Not everybody can be Gen G, where you take 2 players from another country, stick an up-and-coming bubble player on a team, and win literally everything without any scrims or practice or anything at all. That's not realistic. So sometimes this is the contrast to that. It doesn't always work out. Sometimes playstyles don't work effectively. And yes, the scene is complicated. Trying to make contract negotiations and transfer window stuff happen under a time constraint isn't always easy. So yes, we are seeing Optic go through some struggles. We don't know the specific details, and we're probably not going to continue to see those details unless Greg decides to reply to my DM and then I tell you guys about it. But I don't foresee that happening just because it is something that is kept within the team. So the only thing is the stuff that he does state is you can always practice harder. You can always communicate better. You can always have a better mentality. Those things are things that they're going to hopefully build upon and give us an exciting Regional 3, because with their points, they will still be a top 16 team in North America, and those points are going to matter if they want to have a chance to go to the World Championship at the end of the year. If you have paid attention to the Rocket League scene at all in the past week, the only thing you have seen on the subreddit is stuff about a young prodigy by the name of Zen. It's been everywhere, it's continuously talked about, and there's a reason why. For those that don't know the specifics of Zen, he was a player that at the age of 15 was banned for a year for playing underage on account. This seems to be a common thing with 14-year-olds in this scene. It happened to Atomic, it happened to Seiko, it happened to some other players. There's like 4 or 5 players in the scene that have been underage that have played on an account that's not theirs that have led to a 1-year ban. On February 20th, Zen was officially unbanned. Now that he is 16, he is able to sign up, compete, and play in the RLCS. A lot of people know Zen because he has been signed to the Team Vitality roster, but hasn't been able to officially compete in the RLCS because he was banned from the league. Normally people would be asking, well, why isn't he playing in Regional 3? And it's because he wasn't able to sign up during that trade window that happened during the winter break. So spring coming, we're gonna see Zen play, and it's a guarantee. He is going to take the world by storm, and there is a lot of reasons as to why. A lot of us look at what gives the capability of a young professional the chance to be successful. And yes, the outside factors and the intangibles like pressure, what it's like to play in the RLCS against a star-studded lineup, all that kind of stuff is one thing. We've seen Daniel live up to the hype. We've seen Beast Mode live up to the hype. We've seen a lot of these new talent come in and make a difference. But what they don't have that Zen has is an undefeated record in showmatch 1v1s on Johnny Boy's channel against the best players in the world. If you guys haven't seen the Reddit post and you haven't seen the results, something I highly recommend tuning into. I'm just gonna go through this. I'm sure there will be a graphic on screen that'll also kind of display the results, but let me read these out. If you guys remember Raziers, who made a name for himself at Gamers 8, Zen beat him 3-1 in a best of 5. He then beat Lost, the new mechanical nut on Furia, 3-1 in a best of 5. He then swept apparently Jack 3-0, and in that third and final game, it was 12-2. He then went against Moxie, who he beat 3-1. He beat Toxic 3-2. He beat Jorias 3-2. He beat Daniel 4-3 in one of the greatest 1v1s I've ever seen. That was a back and forth affair. That was incredible. He has now beaten Nupo 3-1 and just beat AJ 4-0. And now, tonight, well, upon recording this on the Thursday that we are, he is facing the final boss, Rawas from Mina, one of the young twins. So you're telling me he's 9-0 with a game differential of 29-11 with a 73% win rate against some of the best 1v1 players in the world. Now, throughout me talking about this, I'm sure there has been B-roll, there has been clips, there has been moments, and I think it fails to express how much of a robot this guy is. It's not just his mechanical talent, it's the creativity. It's his ability to mix up his shots. It never looks the same. He is so unpredictable, and when you provide him space, he will destroy you. And that excites me. A lot of Rocket League right now is you're starting to see these mechanical players transition into the third in rotation. You're starting to see them be the last person back so they can wait for that save or that moment, take it up the back wall with a 100 boost, and turn it into something. And the thought of a team of Vitality that already has Alpha on it, probably going to keep Redosin instead of Sazen, and then adding Zen to that mix, is a team right now without Zen, with him on the bench, is a top 4 placement away from going to the Major. And now you're going to add him to that team, and you might finally see Vitality back at the helm like they once were in Season 7, when we were talking KDOP and Scrub. Either way, there's a lot of reasons to be excited about Zen, but the big thing I want to express is the fact that his creativity has no bounds. This also was showcased in his air roll. This has been done before, but something that hasn't really been emphasized. He has provided himself the capability while using his L2 button on his controller instead of a bumper. So when you are using analog versus digital, think about it, controller analog versus a keyboard input. When I hit a button on the keyboard, it is either I'm doing the input or I'm not. There is no finesse in that. But if I go for an aerial with a controller, I have an analog stick. I can do micro adjustments that I can't do compared to like a 0 and 1 input in binary. The thing what Zen is doing is he is also applying that to his air roll. So when he pulls his left trigger on his controller, he can rotate faster or slower, but he gets even more control in his micro adjustments. And this applies to speed flips. This applies to aerials and air rolling. This applies to how he wants to perfectly control and air dribble. All these little minute adjustments that is going to continue to further put me behind the skill level that is Rocket League, because these aren't things I'm going to put time and effort into. I'm happy with it in GC with my 100, like less than 100 ranked games every single season. And you're telling me that we're getting even more control in a physics-based game that I already don't have mechanics in. Zen is, again, showcasing this is possible on a real stage, even though it has been done by other players in the past, but never to this degree. People watch the way he rotates, people watch the way that he moves, and when it comes to the eye test, it feels different. And you will notice that. The more and more gameplay you watch of this kid, you recognize how different it actually feels and how different it actually looks. And then you watch him do it against some of the best players in the world. So while everybody is talking about Zen, I still don't think it's enough. I think this player, while he has a lot of expectations and pressure on him, he is going to crush every single one. I don't know if there's another player that has had this much hype around him outside of maybe Justin, where he solo carried out of style into the RLCS and then got picked up by Energy. Or maybe O'Khaled coming over from Mina because there was no love given to that region until Johnny Boy put him on the map within Civic. So yeah, Zen is going to be good. He's going to be arguably one of the best players in the world. And the fact that he has already signed a Vitality, I highly recommend going back and watching that Fair interview because he talks about exactly why they did it. And he mentions having a solution no matter the situation. It turns out Zen's just the answer for every team, all of them. If you need to win, you put in Zen. Like that's seems to be the circumstance, Sean. Like I know you've watched a couple of his matches, and the guy's a freak.
It's just crazy.
Last but not least, in today's video, we have to talk about the one, the only Pierre Silfer. If you don't know who that is, sorry if I butcher your last name, Turbo, but it's the GOAT. It's the 4-time. It's Turbopolsa. Turbo has been a prevalent figure for a long time. If you guys don't know, his original start in Season 1, one of the players that doesn't really get credit for being here since the beginning. He played for Mocket back all the way in the day. I took a taxi with him after getting reverse swept by Genesis on the way back to the airport, and he talked about how he never wants to lose like that again. He's excited, he's motivated, and comes back with a team by the name of Oh My Dog, and they get smacked. It didn't go well, which leads him to become a sub. The thing is we didn't know it yet, but Turbo was more motivated than anybody I've ever seen. He has talked and expressed about how Rocket League is his everything. If it wasn't for Rocket League, he doesn't know where he would be in life. And that then leads to him being a sub for Weedham Girls. They go on to win a world championship because Maestro has to attend schooling, so he fits in as a sub. He then goes to Gale Force, wins another world championship, goes to Dignitas, wins another world championship, and he continues to have this career, even so to where he transfers to the United States and gives Garrett G his first world championship after fighting to do so for 8 seasons. The legendary status that is Turbo is something that we will always remember in this space and in this scene because of what it has accomplished. There's been numerous documentaries, there's been numerous conversations, and whether you know him in or out of the game, everybody has a level of respect for a player to at one point have won 50% of the world championships that have existed in Rocket League, which is a pretty incredible title. You talk about how difficult it is to win a world championship and what that means now with the new circuit-based style. But without a doubt, it still does not diminish the efforts and the quality of play that Turbo has brought. I personally still believe that Turbo has it in him. I still think he's one of the best positional players in the game. I think he still has one of the best mentalities in the game. But I don't know what the grind has been. I did reach out to Turbo and asked what his tweet meant. And if you guys don't know what tweet I'm talking about, he alludes to he might think it's about time. He might think it's about time to what? And many of us assume of retire, which is something that if he decides to do so, I think it should be celebrated. I wish I had the ability to sit down with Turbo and ask him what he's going through, what he's thinking about as he's tried to rebuild this Dark Zero team that he has been supported by over the last 2 splits. But now that he's out of the running, I think he has essentially what is a month and a half, 2 months before spring split starts to decide what he wants to do. Personally, selfishly, I hope this is just I'm in my feels moment because we got eliminated, and he'll bounce back and he'll take this time to hopefully find a new home or players that will help support. But I honestly believe that it comes down to a certain point in somebody's career where do you continue to compete because you know you can? And I think that's part of the conversation. Turbo is being supported by Dark Zero. Financially, he is earning a wage. He's able to do this for a livelihood. And if he still loves to compete, power to him. The other side of that is, do you tarnish your legacy? At what point by sticking around for too long, you diminish that legacy that you have built, which I don't think any of us really have the right to judge. While I think we can have our own opinions and thoughts and ideas about, yeah, Turbo's really fallen off or whatever it may be, I don't think it ever will take away from what he accomplished before anybody else. He is, and it has been to me, the undefined GOAT of Rocket League. He has been the clear front runner, and maybe K-Dop at times, but that's just because of K-Dop's consistency always going to the grand finals for like 9 seasons or 8 seasons in a row, whatever it was. It was something ridiculous. So the difficulty I have is that we are starting to see a lot of these old players kind of phase out, people that have been here since the very beginning. And Turbopolsa is one that I don't think people really remember. People don't really notice his career until he won that world championship in season 3 as a sub. To which I say, well, he's been around since season 1. He's been doing it as long as the JNapses, the Garretts, the K-Dops, if not longer. And it's pretty impressive to see. But it also is a little sad to see that he might be considering retirement, because that means it's the start of a new era, a new evolution, saying goodbye potentially to one of the guys that has been there and done that and has been at the forefront for a lot of things. And I don't know what Turbo's next steps are. And maybe he isn't planning on retiring, but if he is, those are the things I want to know. Are you going to go into coaching? Are you going to make content? Are you going to join an organization for support staff? What are your intentions? Because genuinely, I care. I want to know what Turbo's going to do, and I hope he clues us in on that sometime in the near future. But Turbopolsa, if this is the start of your retirement, I can't say congratulations enough. You've had an incredible career. You've done some amazing things, and I am excited to see what that next step is in your life, whether it be you taking a step back and having some time to yourself, maybe going back to your homeland and spending time with friends and family that you've been away from for so many years since moving in the United States. Or maybe you find a way to continue to use that goofy personality and live on. Honestly, Turbo, if it was up to me, you become a social media manager for an organization, because the banter is top tier. Either way, I'm excited for what that future is, and I look forward to finding out soon. There were a couple things we also wanted to talk about in today's video, but I'm going to leave those for separate videos. We are trying to make these short and sweet, and I talk about the refinement process, so let's wrap it up here early. I'm sure Sean also appreciates his time being respected, and Caleb having to edit less, which is ironic because usually if I make more videos, Caleb edits those too, so maybe not. Either way, that is going to wrap it for the 3rd episode of Rocket League News. Hopefully a little bit more of a refined process, a different look with the moving background and stuff, trying some new camera stuff, which I think look absolutely stellar. Couldn't do it without Creative Edge Productions here in Green Bay, Wisconsin, so shout outs to both Sean, Tony, and the rest of the staff here.
Hey!
Yeah, that's you guys. You guys are great. It's greatly appreciated that we can do this.
We love you too.
Hey, make sure they know it, because this stuff is, it's a lot of time and effort that goes into these, and it's greatly appreciated. But it's also appreciated for you guys tuning in to each and every episode. We're going to continue to get better and better at these. We're going to try new camera shots, different angles, experiment some stuff, and who knows what that'll lead to in the end. But as always, thank you for taking the time to tune in and watch. I will try to segment these down into a separate video as well, so they're isolated and clickbaited appropriately. And those will be on a new channel called Lawler Highlights, where I will be taking these segments and individualizing them as well. So if you guys can't watch the full 30, 40, 50-minute video, you can watch the 10, 15-minute segment like you guys are used to. But with that said, massive thank you to all of you guys. If you guys enjoy the content, as always, like, subscribe, notifications, check out the shorts, all the new projects we're working on, and hopefully some more announcements soon. But that's going to do it for today's video, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace. So Rawas is like one of the 2 15-year-old prodigies in the Middle East.
Okay.
That is on Rule 1, Sunless Khan's team.
Yeah.
So he is playing him. He's like the last final boss. Like he is 9-0 against all the top 1v1 players.
Really?
He plays Rawas, who's like a 15-year-old cracked mechanical nut in ones.
Yeah.
And like if he beats him, like he's 10-0. Like what else are you supposed to say? He's beaten AJ. He's beaten, like he has gone through the gauntlet of 1v1s. And like when he played apparently Jack, who is argued as one of the best players in the world right now, he beat him 13-2 in game 3 and swept him.
Damn.
Like, or 12-2 or something. Like it's
Just nuts.
it's ugly. The guy looks like an actual
prodigy. Yeah.
He's like Nexto but human, kind of. It doesn't look like I don't know.
When you're shaking your leg, doing that, it does make your jacket jingle on not the sound side, but the other side. It's just like you can see it.
Visual.
Just wanted to let you know.
It's a visual effect. Yeah. We paid extra for that. BDS, man, I'm telling you. I did a short on that about playoff scenarios. I'm like, holy fuck, BDS is done for the season.
Yeah, the putting the air roll on the trigger. My friend started implementing that too.
Yeah.
You can see such improvements. Like, I'm not gonna take the time to learn it. I'm already set. Yeah.
Well, first we gotta, again, the comments got a little upset. He's like, that's literally what like Champ 3 is just their friends boosting and smurfing their friend to GC rewards and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I mean, maybe, but we haven't done that. Guys, I'm not gonna boost Sean. Sean's gotta earn it on his own.
I actually did get GC the other day.
Let's go.
It
Round of
was in
applause.
Rumble, but whatever. I know, it's like,
Hey,
I'm on my way.
Hey, we take those.
It's on my way.
Claps in the comment for Sean hitting
The
GC.
golf clap, because it was Rumble. So yeah.